I've been living in Japan for a little over 4 months now, and one of the things I wanted to track over time was see how good my Japanese has gotten, compare from the beginning of when you started and where you're at now. Also, just to kind of show you, I do have some previous videos of me speaking to other people in Japanese in my first 1 to 2 months of studying, but I haven't done any recorded videos since, so maybe I'll have to show some and do some new ones. So just for context, when I first came to Japan, I knew basically nothing. I think I studied, I know I studied before I came here, but I honestly think I learned 95, maybe even more % of my Japanese living here. And also too, I think once you start learning the language, you kind of learn what's important and what's not as important. So yeah, I think when I was first learning back at home, I was just kind of like watching an episode of anime and, you know, anyways. I'm definitely happy with where I'm at right now, but I'm, of course, still fumbling when I'm speaking to people. I probably speak at like a preschooler, maybe like first grade level. 今、日本語を勉強していますけど、最近、ちょっと忙しかった。ちょっとバタバタしていました。ちょっと悲しい。まあ、もっと日本語を勉強したい。将来勉強。Okay, let's do some beginning. So where I started. So for the first 3 months or so, I was at a language school, and honestly, language school was amazing. And I made some great friends there. Of course, I learned a lot of Japanese, but I think if anything, the coolest thing was that it just gave me a community of people to speak with. The teachers were great, the staff were great. It didn't feel so much like work or like typical school, you know? I mean, it's Japanese, but I've heard a lot of reviews on different language schools, and some are kind of more like workouts where you're just like simply trying to get better and that's it. And I think this language school I went to did a really good job at balancing both. I learned a lot, and I feel like it was not a super pressured environment. I think something interesting about Japanese is it's such a marathon of a language. And I think the interesting thing is I knew that Japanese would take forever to learn, but it's only when you're kind of speaking to people and learning how people speak, grammar that exists, and just even just words that exist that you're just like, okay, yeah, this language is gonna take me, like, this is just something you're just gonna learn for like forever, you know, which is honestly like any language, but Japanese more so. Even in English, I suppose I'm learning new words, so yeah. That's one way to cope with it. And I think another tip that's helped me with Japanese too is just kind of really reframing this language journey as like not necessarily an endpoint at all, but more so just like a lifelong like lifestyle. Like genuinely, that's like the only way to think about it, because I think you can question the language, ask why this exists, why do you have to learn this, why is there 20 counters for things like small objects, round objects, long objects, big animals, small animals, like there's so many things. But like I think once you just kind of like accept it, then I think honestly the language becomes just like something that you just add a little bit to each day, and not like something that you have to like conquer. Yeah, you have to become a philosopher basically if you want to learn Japanese. I think one of the coolest things I've learned about Japanese is like how much it helps you see how like a culture thinks, and like that it's such a context specific language. Like it's probably arguably the most context dependent language. And I think the reason why this is so important is because Japanese is all about like reading the room, politeness, being able to like not cause any like distress to other people. So the language itself also is just like you have to be able to understand the context of the language so that you don't cause that sort of distress on other people. And I think Japanese people get really good at that. For example, Japanese is a more indirect language, and English is less indirect, it's a direct language. In English you'd say, where are you going? Or is that yours? Or do you like it? In Japanese, there are ways to say you, but you don't say you. You don't add you. It's seen as like slightly disrespectful and rude. For example, when I was at language school, someone said to me, "Boba ski?" Well, this was the first time I learned this, but I thought he was talking to me and saying I like boba. Like he was saying he came up to me and he was telling me that he likes boba, and I was so confused. But he was asking me, do you like boba? This was like the second day of me being at Japanese language school where I realized that existed. You could say boba ski, and that could mean I like boba, or it could also mean, do you like boba? And you just won't know, but like obviously based off of context clues, you'll know someone's probably not gonna come up to you and say, I like boba. They're probably asking a question. But yeah, you can imagine how when you're learning the language, it can get a little bit confusing on like what or who someone is talking about. But yeah, overall, I think it was great. I think one thing I would say, like a little bit of a tip, if I could have changed this, would have been to learn a little bit more Japanese before I came here. Then I could have hit the ground running here and start speaking to people as soon as I got here, start just immersing really fast, because the better you are with Japanese, the more that like life here reinforces itself. You know, if you're already speaking at like relatively conversational level, or maybe just below that, and you already have like say 1,000 hours under your belt, then every word, grammar point, message on the train, kanji is just gonna be like constant reinforcement. But I still wouldn't take back my experience. I'm still very glad that I started to learn from the beginning, because it kind of just lined up like that. But if you are planning to improve your Japanese a lot and you want to come here, definitely a good idea to get a little bit better prior to getting here, and you'll get more out of the experience, especially if you could only stay here for 3 months, 6 months, or even a year. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. 聞いてくれてありがとう。ありがとうございます。じゃあね。